This is the granddaddy of all licks. This incredible explosion of notes. So it's pick, pick, pull. Hey everyone, welcome to Everglades Rhythm. I'm Darren, and today I'm going to share with you the secrets to fluid Zen-like improvisations, looping pentatonics. Now imagine being able to flow on the pentatonic scale, almost like a stream of consciousness, where each note naturally leads to the next. And it's not just about playing up and down scales, it's about how to express yourself melodically and rhythmically, and then using dynamic tools like crescendos to build excitement and take your solos to the next level. I mean, think anything from Leonard Skinner to Carlos Santana. When you listen to those solos, they just feel so effortless, like the guitarist is just like tapped into something beyond themselves. That's the kind of thing we're going to explore today. We'll dive into looping pentatonic patterns and how that can unlock exciting, expressive flow in your solos. So here's the thing, in music, there's these three crucial elements that you need, and they come down to the note choice, the rhythm, and then the techniques that you're using to create the sound. So I'm actually going to show you 4 simple licks, and then I'm going to share this little trick that enables you to take those notes and create almost endless variations of them on the fly. So let's get into it. So lick 1, this is the first thing I'm going to show you. This is the granddaddy of all licks, right? And you can see it all over the place. I mean, basically, here's Angus Young. Check this out. Okay, so there he is, like playing that lick all over the place, right? That's like the king of all guitar licks, right? And basically what it is if I'm in the key of C here, that lick's this. I'm going to show you lots of variations on it, but it's basically this. And you hear that lick all over the place. I mean, you're going to hear Hendrix playing it, like he plays it in Hey Joe, you know. Or another classic variation of that I'm going to show you is the amazing crescendo at the end of Sweet Child of Mine, where Slash just plays this incredible explosion of notes. There's some things going on there. It's not quite as straightforward as you think. There's some really amazing stuff going on that makes that such a special lick. So let's look at the theory behind it. So let's say if we're in the key of C. This lick basically starts off as, it's kind of like a unison bend, right? Where you're bending up from the 4th degree of the scale here to the 5th, and then you're playing that same note on the adjacent string. So it's this effect. And then you're doing this pull off, which is from the flat 7 back to the 5th. So the basic lick is like this. So you're bending up, then you're hitting, and then you're doing this pull off, which is from the flat 7th right back to the 5th. You can do that in any key. If you're in the key of A, key of D. So that movement basically goes from tension from the 4th, and then it bends up through the flat 5th to the 5th, which is tension to resolve or tension to stability. That note, the 5th there, is very, very stable sounding. It's the most kind of stable sounding note other than the root. So you're bending up to this very stable sounding note, and then you're doing a pull off from the flat 7 back to the 5th. So it's really almost just like 2 notes, this kind of sound. So you're basically toggling around those notes there, and those are 2 really important notes, because basically what you're essentially doing there is outlining the sound of either a dominant 7 chord or a C minor 7. Now that lick doesn't have a major or a minor third in it. It's just the 5th and the 7th. So it could be a C7 or a C minor 7. And those are the 2 most important chords really in blues and rock music. Blues music and rock music is either always based around dominant seventh chords, which are like a major chord with a flat 7 in it, or minor chords and minor 7 chords. So basically that lick works over both those chords. Okay, so now let's talk about the technique of how you actually kind of achieve that sound. So the first thing is there is a specific picking pattern to this, right? And in this case, I'm going to show you some variations, but the first main one, the picking pattern is going to be pick, pick, pull off. So you pick, and then you bend up, and then you pick again on the next string, and then you do this pull off. So it's pick, pick, pull. So that's the pattern, pick, pick, pull. And here's where it really starts to get interesting, because when you look at that rhythm, what you've basically got is 2 8th notes and then 2 16th notes, right? Or you could think of it like 2 long notes, long, long, short, short. Now what happens is when you play that lick in a continuous way, in a continuous stream, it feels like that lick, rather than just repeating, it feels like it's actually changing, because when you play it the second time, it actually starts on the upbeat instead of the downbeat. Now the reason for that is because this lick is 1.5 beats long. So like if I count it out, it would be like this: 1 and then these 16th notes are half of a beat, so it's 1 and 2, and that leaves a whole half another beat, and that's where you start the lick again. So you actually start the lick this time on the upbeat instead of the downbeat. So it creates this kind of rhythmic displacement where the lick starts in a different place each time. So, for example, if I play it along, you can't really tell if I'm just playing it. But if I play it along to a backing track, you'll see that it actually sounds like the lick is actually moving, and that's part of the magic of this lick. You can literally just play that lick all night long and it never gets boring. It's a great way of introducing excitement and crescendo, the feeling of a crescendo in your solos. And as you keep playing that lick, it kind of recycles and it creates almost like an aural illusion. Okay, so that's one of the magic things about this lick. But next, what I'm going to show you is 4 basic variations on that lick. So you got this first standard one, right? Okay, so then I'm going to show you the next one. It's the same thing, but we're going to put an octave in it. Instead of landing on the 5th, we're going to land on the octave. So it's going to go like this. So it's the same thing, but instead of going to, we're going to go to. And you can also bar with your first finger for some extra harmonic interest by kind of letting those notes ring out. That's where it really starts to get harmonically interesting. Okay, the next one is the actual octave bend, where instead of bending to the 5th, I'm going to actually bend on the B string, and I'm going to bend to the octave like this. So it's the same lick, but instead of this, I'm going to go. So. Okay, and then the last one is the same thing, an octave bend, but with an upper pull off. So it's kind of like the basic, and then with the octave, and then with the octave bend, and then with the upper pull off. So there's 4 different kind of variations on that idea. Now here's the thing, once you start kind of putting those together, you can imagine there's going to be so many different variations of how you can link those together, right? So for example, let's just kind of see how those sound. There's the first one. Second one. Third one. Fourth one. Now each one of those licks does the same thing of that rhythmic displacement of like starting on the downbeats and then the upbeat and alternating like that. So it has that aural effect. But now, imagine what you can do if you start to actually link those licks together. Like starting with the basic standard one, and then going to the octave. Put those two together, you get. Or this is like what Slash does at the end of that solo, Sweet Child of Mine. He does the standard, and then he does the octave bend, and he starts to kind of loop those back and forth like this. But he's playing it really fast. So you can imagine you can start to create some really interesting ways of how you can just create these fluid sounding licks by combining these different patterns. And of course the thing is, we'll get to this later, but you're not gonna, when you're soloing and improvising, you're using your intuition, you're using your imagination. So you're not sticking exclusively to this, but this is kind of how you're training your fingers and getting this into your muscle memory. So the idea here is, so let me give you some examples. I'm going to play through some of those licks. So you can combine those in millions of different ways. And as you're moving around those, you're creating kind of melodies. But when you stay on one of those licks for an extended period of time, you start to kind of create that crescendo effect. Okay, so now, here's where it starts to get really interesting. If you think about that lick, there's basically a pick, another pick, and then a pull-off. So if you kind of play with the order of those notes, you can create 3 different variations. Pick, pick, pull, pick, pull, pick, or pull, pick, pick. So here's how those sound. If I take that first basic lick and play the first pattern, it's pick, pick, pull. The second pattern would be pick, pull, pick. That sounds like this. And then the third pattern would be where you start with the pull off and then pick. So it'd be like this. Each one of those is subtly different. They kind of sound similar, but each one of those creates a different kind of sound and a different kind of accent. Now you can imagine that creates a lot of cool variation there. And the way you can think of that is you just basically, the first way you start on the 3rd string and you do the 2 picks and then the pull off. The second way you start in the middle string with the pull off and you end with the bend. And then the third way you start with the pull off. Like that. And each one has a different kind of flavor to it and they're really cool. But then you can start to kind of mix those together. Like you can use the first pattern and then the second pattern. And then maybe all 3. So you can see it can start to get really interesting. So by altering those sequences, you introduce all these kind of new rhythmic melodies and possibilities. So now what you can do is you can actually apply that same idea to any of these 4 licks. So right here, or this one here. So with that one, how about you start with that one and try doing the pick, pull, pick one like this. That sounds really cool. So it sounds like this. Or how about on the octave bend, you start with the pull and then you do the pick, pick. So here's the thing, you don't want to be playing solos where you're just kind of running through those kind of exercises mechanically. But when you practice these things, you're sort of like embedding these musical ideas in your memory and in your muscle memory. You're sort of like getting these licks burned into your fingers. So then when it comes time to play and jam and use your intuition and use your creativity, they're just right there under your fingertips and they'll just kind of come out. You'll be amazed how these licks will just come out, especially if if you find one that you really like that descending, you practice that and you'll see it kind of coming out in your playing. But it might not just be that lick by itself. It might be a variation of that you've never done before, or it might be part of that lick, or it might lead on to something else, or you might run through some different patterns, all these kinds of things. So you use your imagination and you use your intuition to create the music, and these licks will be right there, and you'll be amazed by what comes out. So for example, here's Joe Walsh kind of riffing on that idea. And you see how he's just kind of playing with the rhythm there. He's starting slow, and then kind of building up the rhythm like that. And that's one of the beauties of that particular lick. So by taking these ideas, you're kind of tapping into this kind of creative well that all these legends used, and they kind of made it their own, and they brought their own creativity to it. So to recap, first start by picking the notes that you're going to play. So practicing this, or this one, or this one. Get those little patterns and those notes under your fingertips. And then you can start playing with the timing and creating these different rhythmic motifs and these rhythmic displacements by turning the licks back and backwards and forwards and moving them around. So by practicing these licks and concepts, you're not just kind of memorizing the patterns, but you're actually building this foundation for endless creativity. So a great one to practice is just that basic lick, and then going up to the octave. And that's a great place to start. All right, so if you found this helpful, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more guitar insights. I'd love to hear how you're incorporating these ideas or any of the ideas that you have, and just share your thoughts and comments below. Until next time, remember, turn it up.